Ooh, it's early to be live, isn't it? What time is it? 8:05 on a Tuesday, and we're already live. You can tell I've got some new equipment because I can't leave it alone. But the reason why I wanted to do this live was, well, a couple of reasons really. One, these microphones are extremely sensitive, so when the office gets full, you can hear the conversations. Even if the window is open, you can hear the road noise outside. So it's best to do these now while the office is quiet. But also, I wanted to talk about marketing. I know I'm no marketing expert. I can only talk about it from our company's point of view and what's worked for us and what doesn't work. Just let me get a sip of coffee. Oh, coffee is lifeblood. I don't know how I'd survive without coffee. But marketing for us, we always wanted to do something different. Now, I remember years ago when I worked in different corporates and you look at their website, and then more importantly, you look at the brochures or the marketing bump that is created. They're very functional. They talk about the features and benefits, which is so late 90s, early 2000s. But they're quite boring. I mean, how many times have you been handed a corporate brochure, be that in a meeting or at a conference, and you might have scanned it and then just put it straight in your bag and never looked at it again? I mean, I got handed a corporate brochure at the Connected Buildings seminar, which was in London. And this brochure was about AR. I mean, it was about putting a headset on, walking around, and various different assets, air conditioning, things like that, are talking to you as you're walking around. Now, that is a very cool product, but the brochure, I looked at it and it was just, it was Snoozeville. Oh my God. Oh, it was boring. And then I wanted to move forward to purchase that product, but bizarrely, I got quite turned off by the marketing bump of the company. I didn't like it. It wasn't really engaging. And again, but it told me all the features of the product, all the benefits that it could have, but it didn't come to life for me. So when we started MKL, I remember, I flirted with the idea. I think we even have the made of a brochure. And this brochure talked about IoT, energy management, building optimization, all these things. And I think I got 1,000 printed, which was me underestimating the order, going, they'll fly out of the door. I think I've got 999 still available because one, I stopped handing them out in meetings. I think I handed one out at a meeting and it was just a case of, thanks for that, and put to one side. I pretty much guarantee that was never looked at again. And then I had them on a conference stand that we did a number of years ago. Not one person took the brochure, but quite interestingly, more people came to actually talk to the people on the stand. The people on the stand in the early days was myself and John, and we can talk until we're blue in the face, and we're quite animated people. And when we're passionate or something and jacked on caffeine and Monster, then stand by, because that's a bizarre experience. But we get the message across, and you can talk with passion. But what I wanted to then mention was, the title of this live is Drop the Brochure and Pick Up the Mic. I always wanted, when I started my own company, a media outlet that spoke very much to our culture. People can come at us at different angles, and they can get various takeaways depending on how they're consuming the media, be that through video, audio, even the written word, if I can be so bold as to say that, although I try to avoid that where possible. So when we started to roll out technology, I remember we were asked to write case studies. And these case studies were 1,500, 2,000 words long. And again, very functional, very practical. This is what you're getting. This is what it's done. Brilliant. But we did something different. And this is ultimately what led to this that you can see now. We didn't start off like this. So we started using TikTok at first. And we thought, well, we're seeing everybody else who are doing technology installs, great products, great teams, great orders. But once the team has disappeared and the legacy that's been left is usually a brochure or a PowerPoint presentation. But we didn't want to do that. So we thought, why don't we do a 60-second TikTok of an installation of technology? So we tried it a few times. A lot of things ended up in the bin. But we managed to find the rhythm of what works, the right sort of music, the right voiceover, the right angles, what information we think that people want to see. A lot of feedback for people saying, well, that's not really interesting to me. It might be interesting to you guys, but I'm not interested. And we started making 60-second TikToks, and then we'd use those for marketing. I mean, they're on our TikTok channel at the moment, but we use them with the client to say, here's your installation. The work has been done. It's been certified to a very high standard. It's been signed off by an approved engineer. All the sort of hygiene factors you would expect when you put in technology, especially when you're starting to do anything around incomers and circuits. You need to make sure that it's done at a safe working condition. So those are just the hygiene factors. But then when you say, let me just send you this video, and you usually we can WhatsApp it to them because WhatsApp is not the devil that it used to be in the corporate world. It's usually just WhatsApp it to them, and then that video within the organization goes viral because it's so easy to spread about by just forwarding it on to somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. And I remember being told by a chap called Chris that TikTok is the new elevator pitch. So it's gone away from, if you've ever done any sales training, there's nothing more awkward than when they say, right, two of you come to the front of the room. One of you is the CEO, the other is the salesperson. The lift is going from the ground to the 10th floor or whatever it might be. You've got 45 to 60 seconds, go. And people are going, right. Hello, my name is Mark, and benefits. I mean, the reason why people are quite clammed up in that, but you get those one or two people who are very polished. You don't want to go first. But the reason why people clamp is it's so unnatural. It just doesn't work. Now, imagine going, have you seen this? And just showing someone a 60-second video, and it's got music and it's got loads of great angles. It completely tells them what the solution is to the problem that they had. But more importantly, it then goes, these are the benefits now you've got of it. Oh, can you send me that video? It's such an easier mode to consume rather than a sales pitch, but also a corporate brochure, a fancy brochure, or even a website, I would say. But then it's evolved from that, from TikTok. We still use TikTok because it's just a fantastic medium to use, and do some research. Look at the demographics of the people that use TikTok. You have to be careful with TikTok though, because you have to balance the fine line between corporate mantra and being funky, because what you do see on TikTok is some of these big corporates, and it's like your granddad or your mum and dad trying to be cool. They put on a leather jacket, maybe put a cap on back to front, wear some Converse All-Stars and go, "Way, look at me, I'm cool now." But most of the demographic on TikTok see right through that. So you gotta have that balance of how do you get a message across, but in a way that people don't see you being fake, but also it isn't too extreme that those in the corporate world, which are maybe not as liberal as you, don't turn off from it. And I mean, and the way that we do it is we put like funny noises, we do a little bit of dancing, funny faces, awkward situations, things like that. It's just a lot of fun. But it's now evolved onto this here. So this is me going live on our solution, but we have a podcast here to Tin Pot 2 podcast. The reason I think I've explained at the start of the podcast, it's called Here to Tin Pot 2, is when we first started out as a company and we were trying to talk to some of these bigger boys and telling them about the future of digital FM and business optimization. They referred to us as a tin pot because it was just myself and my brother in my bedroom when we first started. So getting referred to as a tin pot is never great to hear, but you should never forget your tin pot roots, because it's those things that keep you humble and allow you to spread your creative wings and do things like this. Because if you go too corporate, too stuffy, then before you know it, you got a boring business and you don't want to come to work. But the reason why it's called Here to Tin Pot 2 is look what we're doing now. This is the second phase of the business. Yes, we might have been a tin pot, but look at us now. But we're also never forgetting our tin pot roots. Anyway, but we do the podcast because we've got loads of things we want to talk about, but being honest, it's a medium for us to get our culture out there. I mean, go and have a look. It's on Anchor. It's on YouTube. They stream live on TikTok and all sorts. Was John? See, there you go. John's looking now. Tin Pot for the win. But they're all on different social channels, and the reason why it's on there and the reason why we have the podcast is because someone might listen to that for the topic that we're talking about. I mean, we're just doing a mini 10-part series within the podcast itself on the book about customer experience, but again, with our culture and our spin on it. So it's not boring. It's very much pepped up for what we deem our audience might like to hear. But someone might come to that podcast or that specific episode to listen about that specific topic. But also it might be someone thinking, I want to apply for a job there. I'm going to go out and find as much as I can about this organization. And again, the first thing you would probably do is you would Google MKL Innovation, you'd land on our website, and you'd read the bump there. And again, if you look on our website, it's in desperate need of a refresh. But it's got little GIFs in there, little emojis, things like that are sort of dotted around the site. Again, things you wouldn't normally see in a large corporate. But then they might go, well, what else can I find about this business? Right, so they're on TikTok, they're on Twitter, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, all the normal socials. Or they've got a podcast, they're on Anchor, which is on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, it's all the major channels in terms of where you can host a podcast. Even, as I said, it streams on the normal traditional channels such as YouTube, which I'm live on at the moment, and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. But then they might land on that podcast and go, oh, what's this? And when they see that podcast, they'll be able to not only hear how the leaders of the organization interact, they see the culture, they see the topics that we talk about, how we talk about it, how we position ourselves, how we value ourselves, how we value the company, how we talk about our clients, how we talk about the work that we do. And then you think of that now in terms of where you are. So if you're watching this now live or you're watching it back, and let's say you work at a big company, and I would deem a big company sort of 50 to 100 million plus revenue. And then if you're in the 250s, FTSE 250 and 100s, then you're really big. But you imagine either your boss or your senior management team doing this. So jumping on a podcast or jumping on a live and just waxing lyrical about whatever they thought about that day. Now, it would be a nightmare for their marketing department, because the reason why the marketing department is there, and I would suggest that the reason why the marketing department is to protect the brand. Now, brands are very valuable, and the marketing team have a very important job to do. But there is that fine balancing line between protecting the brand and then stifling creativity. Now, if a CEO just went, right, tomorrow I'm going to get all this equipment and I'm just going to go live every Tuesday, and I'm going to talk about things that I find relevant in the sector or in the business or whatever it might be. Could you imagine how edited or carefully they would need to be guided? And that's the CEO. Imagine if it was a more junior manager to say, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Let's say you're, I don't know, head of operations. I'm just picking a job title that just came to my head then. You're head of operations. And you say, you've got a big team. Let's say you've got 5 direct reports, and then underneath them, they've got another 10, and then underneath them, they've got another 20, and then it sort of like mushrooms out upside down. You got a big team, and let's say you're in, quite an interesting sector. Let's say, I was going to say Tesla, but probably Elon Musk could let you do it. I don't know. Let's say you're in a technology sector that's looking at controlling assets when they're on Mars. Just pulled that out. How cool is that? Okay. Very, very, very interesting. A lot of people would like to hear about that. And then now let's say you're a decent sized company, and that head of operations says, do you know what? I've had a look at our corporate brochures, and we sell to government and high net worth individuals and other big organizations. And again, it's very practical, very functional, tells the client what we want to do. But I think I've got some interesting insights here. Now, I'm not going to give away any trade secrets, but I think I've got some really interesting insights that, one, I can talk about, which would hopefully attract the next generation of people wanting to come to that sector. Because let's say that person who's the head of operations that individual, that man or woman could be very charismatic. Maybe they've got a really interesting personality, quite quirky, quite interesting, looks good on camera in terms of how they interact with the camera. I don't mean in terms of looks, I'm on about in terms of how they interact with the camera. They're not scared of a microphone or anything like that. But they've got very valuable insight. Now, you imagine if they said to their marketing department, I'm gonna do this. What would happen? How much bureaucracy would that go through before that even gets signed up? And would it even be that person to do it? I pretty much guarantee it wouldn't be. And I can only, again, speak from my own experience that I think it was, I won't name the business, but we were designing a bit like a Toonly. Have you seen Toonly? I don't know if you know what Toonly is. It's animation, but you create the animation yourself. Well, I say yourself. You're using characters that Toonly provide. Coffee. And a B. Look. Marketing on brand. So Toonly, you design cartoons, and you can put music on it. And the videos last about anywhere between a minute and 3 minutes. But then you voice them. So you're the person that talks over what is happening in the cartoon. And I remember I was the expert in the area that I was doing, or the agency was designing the cartoon in. So it was designed and it was created and, looked lovely. And then it came to the option of voicing it. So I said, I'm the one that's commissioned this. I'm the one that has signed off the design with marketing support. I would like to be the one that voiced it. Because even one of the characters looked like me. It couldn't have been anybody else. It was me. I mean, I even think, for God's sake, they had a cup of tea in their hand for Yorkshire. And I said, I'd like to voice that. And it was never really sort of directly rejected. It was more, well, the agency's got professional voiceover people, people that do commercials. I think it was the guy that did Cocoa Pops. These people, they can voice this. Never really saying they can voice it better than you, but and you sort of see where that sort of conversation. I mean, the accent thing. I've spoke about it in different podcasts. That can or did for me anyway hold you back in terms of when you start to try to climb the corporate ladder in certain sectors, in certain organizations, can hold you back in terms of the accent that you've got, which is shocking. But now you imagine me trying to do this in a normal corporate and saying, I only decided to go live this morning when I was driving into work because I wanted to talk about this. If I decided to do that in a normal corporate, I just wouldn't be able to do it. It just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. It really wouldn't happen. Now you look at our sector that we're in. So we're sort of sat in the middle of FM, facilities management, and IoT, because we position ourselves as a digital FM business. So we're sort of like sat in the middle. So let me pick on FM at first. So you can go have a look at the big FMs. Not going to name any of them, but just go and have a look at some of the big FM companies, and you find me something like this. The senior leadership jumping on a podcast, the senior leadership letting their culture and their values and their opinions go, and they debate and they talk about the sector, but it's very much from a human being rather than a polished, scripted script or a brochure. If you can find it, then please send it to me, but I'm pretty confident that you won't find that. Now, again, in the IoT world, you would think a very liberal sector is that, and it's technology. These guys, they're doing really cool stuff. But again, you find me an IoT company that's got something like a podcast, or they can just go live whenever they want. Now, I would pretty much guarantee you're probably more than likely to find one there than you are within the FM world. But my point is, this sort of medium is where it's going. And now, it's not just my opinion. I actually did some research while I was making my coffee. And I'm going to read some of these things out to you, some of the stats that I found. So in 2021, there was 850,000 active podcasts with over 30 million total episodes. 30 million? And in 2020, so a year ago, there was 700,000 podcasts. That's a growth rate of 150,000 more podcasts over the last year. So you might think, well, 850,000 podcasts, it's a saturated market. I've seen this mentioned a few times saying that it's a saturated market. But how many websites are out there from corporates? How many brochures are out there from corporates? How many polished videos and promotional activities are out there of corporates? I pretty much guarantee it's probably more than 850,000. I mean, it's a real untapped sector, is this. Podcasts are available in over 100 languages. 51% of Americans reported listening to podcasts. The same study in 2018, this figure was 44%. It's gone from 44% to 51%. I think the pandemic is probably driving a bit of that as well. 37% of Americans listen to podcasts every month. A 29% increase in the percentage of Americans 55 and older who listen to podcasts at least once a month. Almost 25% of the consumers 55 plus listen to podcasts monthly. The average weekly podcast listener spends 6 hours and 39 minutes listening each week. 6 hours and 39 minutes. Now, is that listener listening to your material for 6 hours and 39 minutes? Probably not. But what I would suggest is, let's say you're into long-form podcasting. Joe Rogan is by far the master at this. If you're ever in the market for a podcast, obviously I'd recommend Here to Tin Pot too. But if you're ever in the market for a podcast, listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. That's what turned me on to this sort of stuff, because it's just long form and it is a chat, unscripted, really interesting guests, and talk about some really cool stuff. So let's keep going. 36% of males listen to podcasts each month. 40% of those under 55 listen monthly. 67% of podcasts assume an audience between the ages of 18 to 44. 67%. 18 to 44. Now, I'm sure someone who's watching this for marketing will probably tell you what demographic that is. 45% of podcast listeners, let me say that again, 45% of podcast listeners have a household income of $250,000. Now, if you think about what I'm doing here, I'm live at the moment, and this live is going out over our socials, and we've got contacts who follow us all over the world. So for all I know, there's someone watching this right now, sat in America, sat in South Korea, sat anywhere watching this. But similar to when we put the podcast out. But let's say I go to a agency today, a marketing agency. I commission a brochure, some sort of pamphlet or whatever it might be. It might even be something that's on digital, those things that can fly out of LinkedIn. Let's say I commission a piece of work, spend some money on that. Now, what would my reach be on that brochure to me being live now or on a podcast? What do you think that reach would be? I think the podcast would absolutely spank it, to be honest. And if you are watching this and you are in a business that isn't doing something like this, this is just the way. This is just the way it is. You need to think about allowing your, not just leaders in businesses, but really people that have got a fantastic story to tell. If you've got an operation that's maybe got 2,000 or 3,000 people, you can't tell me that there aren't any people in that workforce that have got really interesting takes on the business. And I don't mean they're coming on to whinge and moan. I'm on about they've got really fascinating insight that not only you would like to hear, but your consumers would like to hear. I mean, think about it from a CX point of view. Wouldn't it be great if you were interacting with a business constantly, and then they also was talking to you, but coming onto podcasts or even doing lives like this, and then allowing people to comment and feedback? It would just be such a interesting, interactive, immersive experience, wouldn't it? Rather than being, here's my brochure, that's what we will. I made a vow over a year ago now that I would never ever commission another brochure in MKL. I just won't. I won't do it. And as long as I have my say, then it won't happen. Because for me, it is all about the medium of how you talk to people, but being genuine. Because on this video here and on the podcast, you can't fake this stuff for long. I mean, I've been talking for nearly half an hour now, and either I'm a phenomenal actor or I'm just being me. But people can tell that even through the camera if you're talking bullshit or not. It's very hard to fake it. But if you're genuine and you talk about an area that people might not know a lot about, or they do know something about and you can have a different spin to it, or you're in the sector constantly and you want to bring some new insights, people genuinely want to listen, but they'll interact with you. And this isn't just because they want to interact with you because you want them to transact. I mean, that would be great. But there are different reasons why people will interact with you and your brand and your medium and whatever that might be. Maybe talking like this, someone could be watching it and it could spark something in their mind. And we have no direct interaction as a result of that. But maybe that individual then goes off and does something great. You don't know. And you couldn't quantify that anyway. But if you don't put yourself out there and you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable and have these conversations, and yes, you can get a lot of hate. People will, but there's always someone ready to strip you down or have a comment, or instead of doing that, why don't you do this? Or there'll be that customer out there that will say, instead of going live, you could have dropped me an email back. You're going to get all that. But think about it in the grand scheme of things. You need to get yourself out there. You need to, as the title of this says, drop that brochure and pick up a microphone. And it doesn't have to be as fancy as this. I posted a video on the MKL Innovation LinkedIn page yesterday showing the guys that designed this studio for us and installed it. Now, the reason why I wanted to do this is because I wanted a separate area from my workstations out there. We've got a separate computer. But I wanted to be able to come into a room, lock myself away, and allow myself to be me and just talk openly and freely without having to worry about kit failing and has it captured this or has it captured that or etc., whatever it might be. This is why we've got this. But you don't need this. I mean, all you need is this, a phone. You could sit there on your phone and have this pointing to you, and I could do exactly what I've done now on that. I really could. But I just wanted that little bit more quality. I wanted myself to feel that I've invested in this. When we started off on the phone, if you think back when I was talking about TikToks, but it's now evolved. You start small. It's a little bit when you start running. If you've ever started to do any exercise, if you hadn't done exercise for a long time, you don't go out and buy all the fancy trainers and all your running gear. Well, I didn't anyway, all your running gear, because you don't know if you're going to enjoy it or not. So you're not going to invest a load of money in trainers, running trainers, proper trainers. You can spend easily 200 quid plus on these things. So you start running in whatever trainers you've got. You put your shorts on maybe that you had on holiday and a top, a t-shirt, which probably might be a little bit itchy, a little bit too warm because it's made of cotton. It's not made of the right fibers for you to run in. But you slowly build, and then you start to realise that, I'm quite enjoying this. This could be something that I could really get used to. I'm going to get some shorts now. I'm going to get a t-shirt, or I'm going to get, out there I've got a microphone that I used to have to my old computer and headset. Okay, now I'm really into it. So I'm going to buy and I'm going to invest in some really good running shoes. And this is mine. These are my running shoes. So I'm going to end it here. But if you take anything from this, please, if you're just about to, or you're in the middle of designing another brochure or another pamphlet or another case study or whatever that might be, just have a stop and pause and think about it. Think about it if you were the person receiving it. Would it be something that would excite you to look at, to read, to engage with? Would it make you pick up the phone or drop an email? Or what about if someone was talking directly to you as a person and giving over with passion that particular area or expertise or subject that you were interested in? Would that then make you pick up the phone or drop an email? I much think it would. So, I got a comment. What's John said? Fish to plop. That's the topic in this book. I think we're going to get to that actually in the mini series. I can't remember which one it was. Let me see. I think it was you should always fish out the plop. I can't find it. Where is it? No, I can't find it. Why can't I find that? It's because I'm under pressure now, and we've got so many chapters. God damn you, John, for putting it into my head now. You should assume no. Can't find it. It's blown it for me. Yeah, I'm going to end it there because people are going to be coming in soon. But as always, comments. Past, if you're watching this later on in the day, feel free to drop a comment in, and I'll pick it up. I promise I'll pick it up and I'll report it back. But yeah, go get a coffee, Coffee's life. And have a great Tuesday. Thank you, everyone.